Hi there, I'm Alikhan. We are talking about the end of the legislative session with Edgar Zazueta, who's ACSA Senior Director of Policy and Governmental Relations. Edgar, a lot of legislation was signed by the governor that has a direct positive impact on students and, of course, school administrators.
Thanks, Naj. Like we do every time at this year, we're trying to go through all the bills and see what has had the biggest impact on our schools and our members and the kids that they serve. After we take stock and really look at all of the legislation, I think our assessment is that the most significant pieces of legislation that were acted upon this year were those that had to do with charter school reform. There had been a lot of discussions about charter school reform for a number of years, and ultimately those discussions culminated in the signing of AB 1505 and AB 1507, which make a number of changes to the Charter School Act. I think of that, the biggest piece, and the piece that I think our members would care about, is giving more discretion to our schools, to our administrators, to our school boards, to really look at a charter school petition and deem, do we need a new school in our community? And gives them a little bit more authority to really review that petition through that lens, through that community lens about what the needs are for that particular community. In addition to that, I would say the school bond, something that ACSA and a lot of our coalition partners had been pushing for a number of years, is something that got across the finish line in AB 48 by Assemblyman O'Donnell. And what that will do is put a $15 billion school bond, facility school bond, on the March ballot, March of next year. And of those $15 billion, $9 billion would be earmarked for K-12 education.
Now, ACSA has been a very strong advocate for local control, and we bring up Senate Bill 328 because there's some discrepancy there and the impact of local control.
Yeah. I think on the flip side, so we talked about the positives. I think as we look at things that the governor acted upon that ACSA didn't agree with, I think the primary example would be Senate Bill 328, which mandated that school start times cannot start before essentially 8 o'clock for middle school and for high school. This was something that ACSA didn't support, not because of the policy. We understand that a lot of our members are already enacting different start times that make sense for their community. For us, it was always about local control. We really felt that those closest to the students should be making those decisions about their community. In addition to that, the governor also vetoed AB 751, which has to do with giving an alternative to the 11th grade SBAC. What we wanted to see and had pushed for a few years is to give schools an alternative to use the SAT or ACT in place of the SBAC, because what we found in hearing from the practitioners that is just a more, for two reasons. One, it's a more meaningful assessment for many of our students because of what's at stake, and also from an equity standpoint that if you're giving more students access to the SAT, ACT, it would obviously help them in terms of giving them access to post-secondary education.
Now, end of this session, governor has signed. So what comes next for the students here in California? What's the next endeavor for ACSA?
Yeah, I think there's some lessons learned here from this first legislative year from Gavin Newsom. And I think the biggest takeaway for us as an organization should be that we need to continue to educate the policymakers. There's a lot of bills, some good, some that we oppose, but I think the biggest piece here is that we need to continue to tell that story about what all these new policies mean in terms of an implication, from an implementation standpoint. As we like to say, the folks here in Sacramento do a lot of stuff. The people who ultimately are in charge of putting that stuff in place are our members, are the educators on the ground. And I think we need to continue to educate them about what those implications are at the site level.
All right. Edgar, thanks so much for joining us. And we invite you to go to ACSA.org to learn more about ACSA's student advocacy work inside the state capitol.